some people are killing our hero. He is tied with a rope and hung, below which there are dangerous zombies locked in a jail. And then this woman calls our hero by name and says that all your companions are dead, and now your life is meaningless for you. Now maybe you have no purpose to live. Our hero looks at her very angrily and says that this is my fault. I am the person because of whom this happened to you guys. And then he yells loudly and says, "Evil woman, you deserve a painful death." And then this woman grabs this fat guy and says, "Hey, look at him. He is getting angry at me again." This fat guy looks at her with a smile and says, "Let's start torturing him slowly to take out our anger." And then he takes out his remote and says, "But we should thank you for the supplies. Now we can live comfortably for a few more months." Saying this, he presses the button of the remote. As soon as he presses the remote button, our hero's ropes come loose, and he falls into the zombie prison. And all the zombies attack him at the same time and start eating him by tearing him apart. Blood starts coming out of our hero's mouth, and all the zombies start scratching his neck and whole body. Our hero says, "Kai Lai, if I get a chance to live again, I will make both of you pay for what you have done. I will not leave you at any cost." After this, he regains consciousness, and then he says, "Jiang Zio, what do you mean?" A girl stands in front of him, and he says, "Why have you not added my name in the house deed? Do you love me too? Tell me what is going on here." And then he feels and thinks in his mind that it is possible that I have been reborn before the apocalypse. Suddenly he feels something strange in his body and says, "In my past life I was deceived by Kai, and she not only took away the inheritance from my parents, but also made me homeless and killed me. And then there was a global catastrophe which turned most of the humans into zombies, and chaos spread in the world. Everyone turned into zombies. And we were out walking at that time, and we made some new friends. And with the help of our new friends, we managed to survive the apocalypse. But who would have thought that that imposter Kai Jing pretended to be a desperate person seeking refuge, and gained my sympathy and took advantage of my sympathy. In fact, she was actually sent by the enemy to destroy us. I didn't understand this at that time. And 400 brides are not worth a dime." And then he thinks for a while. The girl says, "Didn't you hear me?" Our hero glares at her and says, "Evil bitch, now I can't act impulsively. And I will give you a week if you still haven't done it." And then he pushes her out at the same time and says, okay, I understand. Now you can leave from here." The girl turns around and looks at him while leaving. Our hero immediately closes the door, and she says, "What is going on? Jiao, since when did you become so outspoken? He is not mine." And then he closes the door. After this, his eyes fall on the time-telling system, and he looks at it carefully and thinks in his mind, "Is there only 1 month left? I should start preparing for the apocalypse immediately." He is surprised thinking so much. And then he sees the system. It is written on the system, "The apocalypse system is now activated. The system mission is in progress, and please complete it as soon as possible." Here below is the name of the mission. The name of the mission is Preparation for the Apocalypse, and the requirements of the mission are to own a piece of land and prepare a year's supply like provisions. The points can be exchanged for the mission reward 10 points. Seeing this, our hero thinks in his mind that this is a system, and the mission also rewards points. And then he thinks, what can these points be used for? And then the system store is shown, in which all the recovery is increased. Potions are shown plus, and the point of Apocalypse Farmer supply box is 2. And the drama supply box is minus 10 points. And here it is written that 2 points will be minused for refreshing. Our hero puts it down at the same time and says that I almost forgot that in my previous life I was being stingy to collect the bride price of Kyun Hee Jin, and was saving every penny, in which I also became malnourished. Saying this, he picks up his phone and orders some food, and says in a month corpses will spread everywhere. Although it is still a good chance, I should eat good food, and then he orders good food at the same time. and a lot of food comes and is kept on his table. And he says, "Is this the legendary 3-star expensive takeaway?" And then he takes the food in his hand and says, "I should taste it. How does it taste? It's so expensive." And then as he puts it in his mouth, he jumps with joy. His eyes start shining. And he says, "This is so delicious. This is really delicious." And he starts eating the food very fast, and he eats all the food by himself in no time. And then he picks up his mobile and says, "Yes, I should call now." And he says, "Did that manipulative woman cry for her little angel friend?" And then the other end says, "Jiang Aoyun, what do you mean? How can you treat Yui Jing like this? She only wanted you to prove your love. If you can't even give her your property, how can you say that you love her?" Our hero replies that, "Kai Jing, I was just testing you a little, and you failed." And then she says that if you bring the house documents and 1 million yuan in cash here to apologize, then I can help you convince Kai Jian otherwise. Consider it broken. On hearing this, our hero says, "What do you think? What do you think? You can test me. Go to hell." Saying this, our hero immediately disconnects the phone and relaxes and sits on his sofa and says that the owner of a piece of land, this is right. And while walking, he thinks in his mind that I will build the strongest fort on this land, and not only defensive, but it will also be near a water source and forest. After saying this, he goes outside and a woman comes in front of him and says, "Hello, sir. Are you here to rent or buy a house?" Our hero replies, "No, I live here." At that moment, a man in a coat comes and interrupts the woman. Actually, the man is the first manager of real estate sales. His name is Zhu, and he says, "Chung, help carry the boxes to the back. We got a lot of toilet paper today." When Zionai hears this, she says, "Manager Zhu, I need to attend to a customer." But he doesn't even listen to her. The manager immediately takes Zioning's hand and pulls her towards him and says, "Have you forgotten what I taught you? It makes absolutely no sense. Now you go back and work." Zayod, she looks at him and says, "But sir, listen to me." And then he says, "He's a broke loser in cheap clothes. He probably can't even afford a toilet. What kind of customer does he look like to you?" After listening to Zhu, our hero looks at him seriously and says, "What did you say? You are a bad person. You are looking down upon people." The manager looks at him and says, "I am a person who looks down upon dogs like you." And then the manager looks at our hero with arrogant eyes and says, "If you can only buy a toilet, then I will live stream myself eating feces." Our hero starts looking at him with very serious eyes, and he goes close to them and says, "Okay, if that's what you want, then it will happen now, and I will bring hot shit for you in a short while." And then he takes out his debit card at the same time and says, "Hey miss, I have not come here today to rent or sell a house. I have come here to buy land." Everyone is surprised to hear our hero's words. They start looking at him with surprise and say, "Look at him. He has come to buy land. Does he even know how much money it costs? How expensive land really is?" Here the other person says, "Oh my God, this is the first time I have seen someone buying land." Everyone starts discussing among themselves and says, "This seems like a real rich person. This seems like a really big spender." And then that miss signals them to walk forward and says, Okay, sir, please come this way. I would like to give you a detailed introduction of this land." And then she starts taking our hero with her. Here, the manager is getting angry seeing him. Our hero sits on the chair, and the miss shows him some papers and says, "Anyone can hit a ding when it comes time to pay, so everyone disappears. But looking at you, I don't believe that you will be able to pay the money." Saying this, she gives the land papers to our hero. But our hero shows his hand and says, "I don't need all these papers. I will just tell you my requirements, and you will see if there is any match in them or not." Zioning replies, "Please go ahead, sir, and tell me what your land requirements are." Our hero thinks for a while and says, "Mountains near water are preferred, and convenient transportation with running water is ideal. Factories or large buildings should be located on it. Xiao Ning is surprised to hear this and says, "Wait a minute, let me think about it." The manager comes in and asks, "Is there no piece of land in the East District that meets his requirements?" Xiao Ning looks at him and is surprised to hear this and says, "Is there really such a place in the East District?" And she says, "Manager Zhu, are you talking about city land? I think that land won't be right for them. The factories there are all unfinished projects. It is unresolved and cannot be sold to a customer." The manager looks at him again with disdain and says, "What is there to sell and such disrespectful demands from a broken man? I think he is not here to buy land but to cause trouble for us." Our hero looks at him and asks if there is a piece of land in the East District that really meets all my requirements. Jiang replies, "Yes, but there are unfinished factories on it. The leader of the construction team has fled." And hearing this, our hero takes the paper in his hand and thinks to himself, "Yes, this place is great. And it meets all my requirements." And then he thinks to himself that putting up barbed wire will make it easier to defend. And unfinished factories will save me a lot of cost and time. And then he gives the paper back to Jiang at the same time, and says, "I would like to buy this land. Can we pay for signing the contract right now?" Jiang bows her head and takes the paper back and says, "Please excuse me," and then she is also surprised, and says, "Sir, do you really want to buy this land with incomplete factories?" Our hero replies, "Yes, of course, let's sign the contract and get on with the payment soon. And someone is waiting to eat some fresh shit after this." After this, our hero makes the payment right away, and the payment receipt, he gives it to the manager. The manager is very surprised to see the payment receipt and thinks in his mind, "How is this impossible? It is not possible that this poor man bought such a costly piece of land and he paid 3 ziz. And how can someone spend lakhs of rupees on a piece of land with incomplete factories? I don't believe this. How can I believe this?" Our hero puts his hand on the manager's shoulder and says, "Dude, I've paid. Now you get ready to perform while you enjoy this. I'll send you a super chat later." And then everyone starts clicking the manager's photo. The manager gets really annoyed by this, and everyone says, "Fatty, I've turned on the live stream for you. Hurry up and eat your shit," another person says. "Fatty, my stomach isn't feeling well today, but I promise it will be fresh for you. And I ate lobster yesterday, and now you have to eat it." And then the system task is shown. And our hero starts walking towards the exit, and he thinks to himself that I have spent all the money of the bride price on buying land. And now I need to find a way to get money to replenish the stock. And then he starts walking forward. A person is passing by him, and seeing our hero, he thinks to himself, "Is this Jiang Xiao? And what is he doing here?" Thinking so much, he walks away from there. On the other side, everyone catches the manager and throws him on the ground and starts feeding him shit. The manager's condition gets worse, and he is screaming for help and says, "I don't want to eat shit. Forgive me. What are you guys trying to do to me?" On the other side, this beautiful lady is applying nen polies and drying the nen polies by blowing on it. Suddenly, she gets a call on her mobile, and she picks up the phone and says, "Lai Hong, friend, do you still remember me?" And she says, "Did you know? Jiang Xiao came to the real estate company today to buy land." On hearing this lady gets very angry, and she says, "What did you say? He bought the land. Where did he get so much money?" And then I tell him that he has made a down payment of 3. And then boss says, "I think this must be all the bride price money that he saved." And then she shouts, "He is a bastard. How dare he use my money?" And then she says, "Don't be mad. Find Jiang Xiao and ask him what he is doing. How dare he spend our money?" And then she says, "He has turned the tables on me. He has actually used my money. I will definitely expose him online today." On the other hand, our hero sits on the couch, thinking that I will need more money to buy supplies or build a base. Where should I get this money? Suddenly he hears someone coming, and he turns his head and looks towards the door. And says, "What happened? Here come these two women." And our hero looks at them and says, "What are you two doing here?" The woman says, "Jiang Zio, what do you mean? How dare you spend my money?" Our hero looks at her seriously and says, "What are you talking about?" The woman points her finger and says, "Don't think I don't know anything. You used my bride price money to buy land. I am telling you that the bride price money is mine, and you bought the land." Our hero looks at her finger carefully, and he says, "Hey, have you gone mad? Let me tell you that I have a lot of money," and then he takes out a bundle of notes and puts it on her shoulder and says, "But I will not spend a single penny on you." Our hero looks at them seriously and says, "If you think that I don't know about your relationship with Li Suxiang, then you are mistaken. I have come to know everything about your relationship. You are cheating on me." After this, she looks at him with angry eyes and thinks in her mind, "What is going on? How is this possible? How can he know about me and Suxiang?" After this, our hero throws both those girls out of his house and stands holding the door. The other woman says, "You both calm down. This is just a misunderstanding." Our hero looks at her and says, "Considering my ass as an ass is not a misunderstanding. And she is not my girlfriend. And she wants to live with that old man." And she talks to him. He closes the door and says, "Fuck you. Just looking at you makes me upset." The woman is shocked and says, "No way. How did he know about this? We were always careful when we booked rooms." Then they press the elevator button and go downstairs. And then she explains to him, "Jiang, this is a big problem. Why didn't you tell me before? Are you really involved with that middle-aged man Suxiang?" After hearing this, she replies that the rooms were booked a few times just now. She then puts her hand on her head and says, "This situation is out of control. Let's go back and think about making a plan." And then she says, yes, that's exactly what we need to do." Then they arrive and she says with a smile, "Because you messed things up with Jiang, so I'm not going to back out. After all, we are good sisters." Here our hero goes to the place which he has bought. And there he talks with the engineer and says, "This is the factory which I want to renovate." And then he asks how long will it take to complete it again. This guy is the foreman in Paru Construction Company, and he says that strengthening the walls and making guard towers, putting barbed wire in a Texas, steel blast-proof doors, making them thicker, and installing bulletproof, tempered glass, etc. All these works will take a lot of time, and he says, "Sir, may I ask which power did you insult?" Our hero replies that don't ask too much. Knowing too much will not benefit you. Just tell me how much will it cost to do this work in a month. The foreman takes the piece of paper in his hand and says, "Friend, this cannot be done in a month." Our hero says, "Stop talking. If you can't do it, there are plenty of people who can." The foreman says, "Boss, Paru's life matters too. In fact, I have a conscience as a foreman." And then he says, smiling, "No, boss. I mean it will cost more." Our hero looks at him surprised and asks, "Tell me your price." The foreman shows 2 fingers and says, "If we have to finish it in a month, then I will need Paru to work hard. And it will cost at least around 20 million. Our hero looks at him smiling. And then the foreman says, "Yes, you have to give us a deposit of 5 million yuan first. That way we can start our work." Our hero replies, "Okay, I will transfer the money to you within a week. You start work for now." The foreman looks at them in surprise and smiles. And then our hero puts his hand on his shoulder and says, "It's okay, don't worry about me not paying. If I don't pay, then this land will be yours." The foreman then agrees to this and says, "If that's the case, then it's okay." At the same time, this girl comes close to them and says, "Hey, brother Jiang." Our hero turns and looks, and then the girl immediately comes and holds his hand and says, "What are you doing here?" And then she stands up holding his hand and tries to hug him. And she says, "Brother, what are you doing here?" Our hero looks at her and thinks in his mind that this girl cheated me in my previous life and took away my family fortune. This time I will make you pay double." And then he says, "What are you doing here?" The girl says smilingly, "Brother Jiang, what a piece of land you have bought. The scenery is so nice. Are you planning to build a villa here?"